When someone with an avoidant pattern falls deeply in love, the experience inside them is nothing like what they show on the outside. Their silence is louder than most people's words, their distance is often more intense than closeness, and their withdrawal contains emotions they cannot express. You may look at them and wonder how a person who feels so much can behave like they feel nothing. You may wonder how a heart that clearly loves you can pull away, shut down, or disappear right when things felt the most meaningful. You've probably replayed their actions, their tone, their small moments of tenderness, their sudden coldness, trying to understand what is real and what is hidden. But the truth is, what they are hiding is far more complicated than people realize. Their behavior isn't a rejection of you, it's a reflection of a battle happening inside them, a struggle they never learned how to handle. When you first entered their life, something shifted in them. They didn't expect you, they didn't prepare for the impact you would have. They didn't know that one connection could awaken feelings they buried years ago. They didn't know that someone could see them so clearly, so deeply, without even trying. They didn't know that affection from you could feel both comforting and terrifying at the same time. And because of this, they've been fighting something within themselves, an emotional truth they don't know how to hold. The reason they hide their feelings is not because their heart is empty, but because their heart is overwhelmed. They fear that showing you how much you mean would expose parts of them they have spent years protecting. They fear that the moment their guard drops, everything could fall apart. They fear that letting you close means losing control, losing independence, or losing the fragile balance they hold within themselves. Their love is not simple. Their attachment is not smooth. Their emotions move in waves, strong, deep, and uncontrollable. Yet their expression is the opposite, quiet, guarded, restrained. Behind that silence there is a storm of longing they cannot name. When they look at you, they feel warmth. When they think about you, they feel connection. When they imagine losing you, they feel panic. But when you get too close, a wall rises automatically, not because they want it to, not because they mean to hurt you, but because closeness touches wounds they never learned to heal. Loving you brings comfort and fear at the same time, and that contradiction creates a confusion even they don't understand. They hide their true emotions because they fear being vulnerable in a world where vulnerability once cost them safety. They fear allowing someone into a space inside them they have kept locked for years. When they pull away, it's rarely because they've lost interest. It's because the depth of their emotions is too strong. They fear losing themselves. They fear losing control. They fear being abandoned once they allow someone to matter. Their love runs so deep it frightens them. It exposes everything they tried to forget. Sometimes you can see it in their eyes, the softness, the affection, the unspoken words. You can sense it in the way they look at you when they think you're not paying attention. You can feel it in the small moments when their guard slips and they let you close. They care more than they admit. They feel more than they ever say. They're in love, but they don't know how to be in love without feeling unsafe. And so they hide. They pretend they're fine. They act like they're unaffected, but inside their heart is shaking with emotions they can barely hold. Their childhood wounds shaped this entire dynamic long before they ever met you. They may have grown up in an environment where emotional closeness wasn't safe, or where expressing needs led to disappointment or rejection. They learned early that the safest place to live is behind walls, not because they wanted to isolate themselves, but because emotional independence became a survival strategy. Now, as an adult, love awakens a fear they don't understand logically, but feel deeply. When you come close, their nervous system doesn't interpret it as love. It interprets it as risk. This is why they pull back right when things become meaningful. Their instinct is to protect, not connect. Their heart wants you, but their history makes them retreat. Even when they love you intensely, they hide parts of it because they don't want you to see the insecurity underneath. They don't want you to see the fear that whispers, "What if I'm not enough for this person? What if they leave? What if I disappoint them? What if I give everything and they walk away?" The distance is an armor, not a dismissal. The silence is a shield, not punishment. Their complicated truth is that they love you more than they can handle, and it scares them to their core. There are moments when they want to reach out, but their fear stops them. Moments when they want to confess everything they feel, but their walls tighten instead. moments when they want to be held, but they convince themselves that needing someone is dangerous, so they push down their emotions. They pull away from what they actually want. They create space not because they feel nothing, but because they feel everything too strongly, and they don't trust their ability to navigate it. Yet they show their love in quiet, hidden ways. The way they listen when you speak, the way they soften when you're near, the way they remember small details about you, the way they protect your feelings even when they pretend not to care, the way they come back, even after distance, drawn to you by something deeper than they can express. Their love isn't loud, but it is profound. Their affection isn't verbal, but it's present. Their heart doesn't open easily, but when it does, it opens with sincerity. They are deeply in love with you, but they are hiding something complicated, something even they may not fully understand. They're hiding their fear of being seen, their fear of losing you, their fear of losing themselves. They are hiding the intensity of their emotions because they're not sure how to carry them. They're hiding their longing because longing makes them feel exposed. They're hiding their dependency because needing you feels dangerous. They're hiding their heartbreak because showing it feels impossible. If you feel confused, it's not because you imagined the connection. It's not because you misread their affection. It's because you're dealing with someone who loves from behind a wall, someone whose heart is louder than their actions. They want you, but they don't know how to handle wanting someone this much. They need you, but they don't know how to admit that needing someone isn't a weakness, and so their heart loves, and their actions retreat. Their emotions reach for you, and their fears hold them back. And yet, despite all this, they think about you more than you know. They replay moments with you. They imagine what closeness could feel like if they weren't afraid. They wonder if you'll stay patient or if their distance will drive you away. They hope you understand them even when they don't understand themselves. Their love is real. Their fear is real. Their silence holds both. And inside them, the battle continues, wanting to stay close while fearing what that closeness might reveal. Their love is deep, but the story inside them is complicated. Even though their love is hidden behind layers of caution and silence, the signs are always there if you know how to see them. Because someone with an avoidant pattern rarely expresses love in the way people expect. They don't use loud declarations, constant communication, or predictable affection. Instead, their love shows up in micro moments, quiet gestures, subtle shifts in their energy when you're around. They won't say, "I miss you," but you'll notice how they stay connected in small ways. They won't say, "I care," but you'll see it in the way they look at you when you're not looking back. They won't tell you how important you are, but their behavior reveals it in unexpected ways. The avoidant heart sends signals in a language that few people recognize. That's why so many misunderstand their love as indifference. But if you watch closely, you'll notice the truth. You'll see the way their body shifts slightly toward you when you're near, even if they don't speak. You'll feel the warmth in the short moments when their guard temporarily drops and their real emotions surface. Those seconds when they let you see the softness they hide from the world. You'll sense the tension inside them when intimacy grows, not because they want to run from you, but because they feel more than they know how to handle. Their love is in the way they remember the small things about you, the way they respect your boundaries, the way they subtly protect your feelings without drawing attention to it. It's in the way they quietly make space for you in their life without saying a word about it. But right when their love becomes clearer, that's often the exact moment they pull away. For most people, this is confusing. It feels like emotional whiplash. Like one moment they're present, connected, responsive, and the next they're distant, withdrawn, impossible to reach. It makes you question everything. Did they lose interest? Did you do something wrong? Did the connection fade? But the truth lies deeper, hidden beneath their external behavior. When love reaches a certain depth for them, something inside gets activated, a protective reflex, an internal alarm, a feeling that everything is becoming too real too fast. This is not about you. It's not about your worth or your attractiveness or your effort. It's about their nervous system responding to emotional closeness like it's a threat. This reaction is wired into them long before they met you. When they withdraw after moments of closeness, it's not because they don't care, it's because in that moment they care too much. Intimacy touches a part of them they don't know how to regulate. Vulnerability feels like danger, even when love is the intention. So they instinctively create distance, not as punishment, but as protection. Distance is their default safety zone, even when it hurts them to use it. There are moments when you'll see the fear behind their withdrawal, the subtle hesitation in their eyes, the tension in their voice, the way they avoid deep conversations because they're afraid of what might spill out. Inside them lives a fear of hurting you, a fear of disappointing you, a fear of exposing their own flaws. They may act confident, self-sufficient, or emotionally untouchable, but beneath that exterior lies a fragile part of them that feels unworthy of being fully loved. They may believe that if they let you see the real them, messy, emotional, imperfect, you will walk away, so they pull back preemptively, trying to avoid a pain they've convinced themselves is inevitable. What they don't tell you is that they often feel guilty for pulling away. They blame themselves for not knowing how to show love the normal way. They wish they could be open, expressive, easy to connect with. They wish they could communicate their fears instead of acting them out. But they don't know how. Their whole life they've been conditioned to protect their emotions behind walls so strong that even they can't break them at will. And now that they've met someone they truly love, those walls become both a prison and a shield. They keep you out, but they also keep them trapped in patterns they don't know how to change. One of the most complicated emotions they hide is shame. Shame is the quiet ghost that follows them into every relationship, whispering that their feelings are too much, that their needs are burdens, that their vulnerability is self-sabotage. Shame tells them they're safer alone, safer detached, safer unresponsive. So even when their heart longs for you, shame pushes them away from what they want. This is why they act distant even when they're attached, why they retreat even when they desire closeness, why they seem cold even when they're emotionally invested. Their shame is not about you. It's about their belief that they're not capable of being fully loved without eventually being rejected. When they pretend not to care, it's because caring feels dangerous. When they act unemotional, it's because expressing emotions feels overwhelming. When they act like they don't need anyone, it's because needing someone once led to pain they never healed from. Their emotional armor is not a reflection of their love for you, it's a reflection of their fear of being truly seen. They create distance not to push you away, but to protect themselves from the intensity of what they feel. Love exposes the parts of themselves they've spent years hiding even from their own awareness, and that exposure is terrifying. But behind that emotional armor, there is a truth they try to hide. They feel deeply, sometimes more deeply than they know how to handle. They worry they're too complicated for you, too unpredictable, too inconsistent. They fear that sooner or later, their emotional limitations will hurt you. They pull back because they believe distancing themselves might protect you from their own perceived flaws. In their mind, distancing is not an act of rejection, it's an act of self-preservation and a misguided attempt to shield you from disappointment. This is why commitment feels complicated for them, not because they don't want it, not because they don't see your value, but because commitment means consistency, vulnerability, emotional transparency, things they struggle with. Commitment means letting you see the real them, the emotional them, the scared them. It means allowing their heart to be open without a wall to hide behind. And that level of exposure feels overwhelming. They want to choose you, but choosing you means risking emotional freedom, risking comfort, risking the safety they've built around themselves. Their heart wants to move toward you, but their habits, fears, and emotional conditioning pull them back. Still, despite these fears, there are moments when their true feelings break through the cracks, moments when they surprise themselves with how natural it feels to be close to you, moments when they want to reach out, to talk, to share, to connect. But just as quickly, the fear returns, telling them not to lose control, not to trust too deeply, not to reveal too much. The push and pull inside them is constant. One moment they feel safe enough to open up, the next moment they panic and retreat. This inconsistency is not manipulation, it's emotional confusion. There are times they test your patience without meaning to. Their silence, their unpredictability, their sudden shifts in behavior, these aren't games. They are reflexes, responses rooted in fear, not intention. When they become inconsistent, it's usually because they're overwhelmed by their own emotions, not because they want to cause confusion. They don't test your patience on purpose, but their patterns create situations where your patience is tested anyway. They want reassurance but don't know how to ask for it. They want closeness but fear they'll mess it up. They want love but don't believe they can sustain it. And when you show patience, compassion, or understanding, it touches them in ways they rarely show. It makes them feel seen without feeling exposed. It makes them feel valued without feeling pressured. It gives them a sense of emotional safety they rarely experience. But at the same time, this safety feels unfamiliar, and unfamiliar emotions activate old fears. So their heart moves forward, then their mind pulls them backward. Their emotions say yes, their fear says no, and this inner conflict becomes a cycle they don't know how to escape. If you've ever felt confused by their behavior, remember that they are equally confused by their own. They don't understand why love makes them anxious. They don't understand why closeness feels overwhelming. They don't understand why their heart chooses silence when their mind wants connection. They don't understand why someone as meaningful as you triggers both comfort and panic. Their heart wants you, but their history makes everything complicated. What they truly wish is that they could love you without fear. They wish they could express their emotions fully without feeling exposed. They wish they could let you into the deepest parts of their heart without worrying about being hurt or losing themselves. They wish they could show you how much you matter without their protective instincts getting in the way. Deep down, they hope you can see through their silence to the love they can't say out loud. They hope you can understand the complexity behind their behavior. They hope you won't mistake their fear for indifference. And more than anything, they hope you won't give up on them before they learn how to open up. Their love is real. Their fear is real. Their silence holds both truths at once. Even though they keep so much inside, there comes a moment when their feelings become too strong to hide, even from themselves. It's a moment when the connection with you becomes too real, too meaningful, too undeniable for them to pretend it's casual. This is the moment they realize they're falling in love, and that realization shakes them, sometimes to their core. Unlike most people, love doesn't just warm the heart of an avoidant, it destabilizes them. It makes them feel things they've spent years avoiding: dependence, vulnerability, emotional exposure, the fear of needing someone. It brings up every defense mechanism they've built, and those mechanisms collide with their growing affection for you. When they first recognize how deeply they feel for you, it's not excitement they feel at the beginning, it's panic. Not because they don't want you, but because the emotional intensity overwhelms them. They've learned to protect themselves by staying at a safe distance, by keeping emotional connections shallow, by avoiding situations where they could be hurt. But with you, none of those strategies work. Their heart doesn't listen to their fear. Their emotions keep reaching for you, even when their mind tells them to pull back. And this contradiction creates an internal storm that doesn't show on the outside, but consumes them on the inside. In those moments when love becomes undeniable to them, they'll often behave in confusing ways. They might suddenly become more present, more affectionate, more attentive, then disappear without warning. They might open up to you one day and shut down the next. They might be warm in the moment and icy soon after. This hot and cold cycle isn't because they're unsure about their feelings. It's because they're sure, too sure. Their emotions are strong enough to terrify them, strong enough to activate the old fear that loving someone deeply means losing control or risking heartbreak. You may notice subtle signs that they've reached this deeper emotional stage. Their eyes soften when they look at you. Their tone becomes gentler. Even if their words remain guarded, they might check on you more than before, even if they pretend it's casual. They may linger in your presence longer than they intend to. These little gestures are their way of saying, "I care more than I can explain," even if those words never come out of their mouth. But the moment they realize they're showing too much, their fear kicks in and they withdraw again. It's a cycle they don't know how to break, even though part of them wishes they could. A deeply hidden truth they rarely admit is that you make them feel safe and afraid at the same time. You are the comfort they never expected, the emotional warmth they secretly crave, the connection that reaches their heart without them trying. But because you bring them comfort, you also bring risk. You represent the possibility of closeness they never learned to navigate. You represent the kind of emotional connection they've convinced themselves they aren't capable of maintaining. And that duality creates an emotional paradox inside them. They feel drawn to you and threatened by their own desire for you. They feel at home with you but fear what staying home would require of them. Your presence touches parts of them they've kept hidden not just from others, but from themselves. You awaken emotions they haven't felt in years, maybe ever. And even though those emotions feel beautiful, they also feel dangerous because they're unfamiliar. For someone who is used to emotional independence, feeling deeply connected to another person can create a fear of losing control over their life, their stability, or even their identity. You become the person they trust the most and fear the most, not because you've done anything wrong, but because their emotional limits are being tested. One of the most complicated feelings they hide is jealousy. They rarely show it because showing jealousy means admitting emotional attachment. And emotional attachment is something they instinctively cover with distance. But inside, their jealousy is real, sometimes intense. When they see someone else gaining your attention, they feel something deep, something sharp, something they don't know how to process. They may not react outwardly, but inside, their mind begins spinning with fears they never admit aloud. Fear of losing you, fear of not being enough, fear of someone else giving you the emotional closeness they struggle to provide. Their jealousy often stays hidden behind calm expressions and quiet behavior. They won't confront you about it. They'll simply get quieter, more withdrawn, or subtly more attentive without admitting why. They might become defensive without realizing it. They might text you randomly after being silent for days, not because they suddenly decided to reach out, but because the thought of someone else taking their place activated a fear they can't suppress. Their jealousy isn't possessiveness, it's vulnerability. It reveals how deeply they care. There are also moments when silence carries their deepest emotions. Silence for an avoidant isn't emptiness, it's overload. When they go quiet, they're often thinking about everything they feel but can't say. They're questioning themselves, they're analyzing their emotions, they're trying to understand why their heart reacts so strongly to you when they've trained themselves to stay detached. Silence becomes their way of processing the emotional intensity they don't know how to verbalize. And while their silence may feel like abandonment to you, it often feels like self-preservation to them. They won't tell you that silence sometimes means, "I'm scared of how much I feel." They won't tell you that distance sometimes means, "I need space to calm my emotions before I lose control." They won't tell you that silence sometimes means, "I love you, but I don't know how to express it without losing myself." And so you're left interpreting actions that don't match their emotions, trying to decipher a heart that has been conditioned to hide. Deep down, they yearn to be honest with you, to say what they feel, to show what they hide, to let their guard down without fear of judgment. They imagine telling you the truth, that you matter more than they expected, that they care more than they show, that their distance is not rejection but fear. They imagine being able to speak openly without their voice shaking, without their mind shutting down, without their reflexes taking over. They imagine holding you without calculating the emotional risk. They imagine being with you without the urge to run, but every time they consider opening up, their fear of vulnerability returns. They worry that if they reveal the depth of their feelings, you'll have the power to hurt them. They worry that once they show you the real them, emotional, flawed, imperfect, you'll see them as too difficult, too complicated, too much work. They fear that you'll eventually get tired of their inconsistencies, their distance, their silence, their emotional confusion, and so they hide the truth to avoid the possibility of rejection. Even though they struggle to express themselves, what they want most is emotional safety, something they rarely admit. They want someone who understands that their silence is not a lack of love. They want someone who sees their efforts, even if those efforts seem small. They want someone who recognizes that their heart is trying, even when their fear is louder. They want someone who can sit with them through the quiet moments, the uncertain moments, the confusing moments, without making them feel pressured or inadequate. They want someone who loves them gently, consistently, patiently. When you offer calmness, it softens them. When you don't judge their fear, it reassures them. When you give them space without punishment, it builds trust. When you respond with stability instead of panic, it shows them a kind of love they've never experienced. And it's in those moments that something shifts inside them. They begin to see that love doesn't have to be overwhelming, that vulnerability doesn't have to lead to pain, that closeness doesn't have to threaten their identity. They begin to feel slowly that maybe they can stay instead of run. But this shift is not immediate. It's gradual, fragile, unpredictable. One day they may feel open and connected, and the next day fear might take over again. This doesn't mean they're unsure about you. It means they're fighting a lifetime of emotional conditioning. They're trying to rewrite patterns they've lived with for years. They're trying to allow love into spaces they've kept closed for so long. They're trying to trust that you're not like the past that shaped them. This inner battle is complicated, painful, confusing, but it is also proof of how much you mean to them. If they didn't care, they wouldn't struggle. If they didn't feel deeply, they wouldn't fear losing you. If they weren't in love, they wouldn't be fighting themselves this hard. Their love is hidden behind layers of caution, but it is powerful. Their fear is loud, but their feelings for you are louder. And even though they may not show it in a direct way, you have become someone whose presence affects them deeply, someone who touches their heart despite the walls, someone who challenges their old beliefs about intimacy. They won't say it, but inside they're hoping they can learn how to love you without fear. They're hoping they can one day tell you everything they feel without shaking. They're hoping they can live in the closeness instead of escaping it. And even though they're hiding something complicated, fear, shame, past wounds, emotional overwhelm, the truth is that their love for you is one of the most real things in their life. You matter more to them than their fear wants to admit. Even though their love runs deep, and even though their heart silently reaches for you, there comes a stage when silence becomes their dominant language. To most people, silence feels like abandonment, rejection, or emotional withdrawal. But to someone with an avoidant pattern, silence is something entirely different. Silence is where they hide the emotions they cannot regulate. Silence is the space they use to protect their heart from overwhelm. Silence is how they breathe when the intensity of love becomes too much for their nervous system to handle. And the more they feel, the quieter they become. Every time they pull back, the world inside them becomes louder, not quieter. They think about what they should say but don't. They replay their conversations with you. They imagine what you might be thinking about them. They wonder if you're hurt, confused, or losing faith in the connection. They worry that their silence is pushing you away, yet they don't know how to break it without feeling exposed. Silence becomes their shield and their prison at the same time. They won't tell you that during their silence they're missing you. They won't tell you that during their silence they still check your messages, your status, your presence, anything that reminds them of you. They won't tell you that they sometimes type a long message expressing everything they feel, then delete it before sending, terrified that it reveals too much. They won't tell you that their silence often hides a longing so deep it scares them more than it soothes them. To them, silence is not absence, it's emotional overload. They want to reach out, to break the distance, to reconnect, but fear holds them back. Fear of coming on too strong, fear of saying the wrong thing, fear of letting their guard down, fear of feeling too much. Their silence is full of emotion, full of thoughts, full of confusion. So when they withdraw, remember, it's not that they don't care. It's that they care so much their fear becomes louder than their desire. In the quiet moments, they often wonder what it would feel like to finally tell you the truth, to say everything they hide, everything they suppress, everything they're too afraid to admit out loud. They imagine telling you that the reason they go silent is because their emotions grow too intense. They imagine confessing that every time they disappear, they're battling with themselves. They imagine saying, "I love you, but I don't know how to let myself love you without losing myself." They imagine being able to speak without the pressure of perfection, without the fear of judgment, without the weight of their past dragging them back into old patterns. They want to tell you that their heart is louder than their walls. They want to tell you that their fear is the only thing that stands between you and them, They want to tell you that the complicated truth they hide is not about you at all. It's about the emotional shadows inside them that they've never learned to navigate. They want to tell you how deeply you affect them, how much your presence matters, how much they think about the future with both hope and fear. But those words never make it past their lips. Every time vulnerability rises, their survival instincts shut it down. They hide their emotions because exposing them feels like standing unprotected in a storm. They've built a life of self-reliance, and letting someone else matter threatens that structure. What they want to say remains locked inside because they don't know how to express it without feeling like they're losing control of their emotions. They imagine telling you their truth, but their fear tells them to stay silent. Still, the truth lives inside them, waiting for the right moment to emerge. But the question is, what makes them finally open up? What makes an avoidant heart shift from fear to trust? What breaks through their emotional defenses? It's not pressure. It's not arguments. It's not forcing conversations. The avoidant heart doesn't open through force. It opens through safety. When they feel emotionally safe, when they feel accepted, when they feel they won't be judged for their imperfections, something begins to change inside them. Emotional safety is the one thing that melts their walls more than anything else. What makes them open up is consistency without pressure, calmness instead of urgency, understanding instead of frustration, presence instead of demand. When you create a space where they don't feel rushed, where they don't feel like they're failing you by being themselves, their fear slowly begins to soften. They start to trust that the connection won't collapse if they show you their real feelings. They begin to believe that vulnerability won't punish them. They start to feel that closeness doesn't have to equal emotional suffocation. When they see that you can handle their moments of silence without panicking, they begin to trust you. When they see that you respect their need for space without interpreting it as rejection, they begin to relax. When they see that you don't punish them for their emotional limitations, they begin to open. And when they realize that your presence brings peace instead of pressure, they begin to let love in. It's often in the quiet moments, in the seemingly insignificant conversations, in the gentle interactions that their heart begins to heal, even if they don't say it aloud. They may start sharing small details about their day, little glimpses into their thoughts, subtle fragments of their emotions. These small openings are monumental for them. Every tiny step toward vulnerability is a victory, even if it seems small on the surface. Eventually, they reach a moment where they feel safe enough to let you see a little more of them. They may not give long emotional speeches or dramatic confessions, but they will show you through subtle shifts. They become more consistent. They become more responsive. They initiate more. They check on you. They let you into their inner world slowly in fragments. You'll notice them trying, even if their efforts don't look like the typical expressions of love. And when they try, even in the smallest ways, it's because they feel something real and want to protect it, rather than run from it. This transformation doesn't happen overnight. It happens gradually, through emotional safety, trust, and patience. But someday, if the connection continues to grow, they will reach a point where opening up is less terrifying, a point where love feels less like a threat and more like something gentle, supportive, and grounding. And when they reach that point, the walls they once hid behind will no longer be as strong. They will slowly dissolve, replaced by a desire to connect instead of retreat. Because the truth is, they're not hiding a lack of love. They're hiding a complicated emotional reality they don't yet know how to express. They're hiding their fear of being fully seen. They're hiding the wounds that shaped their emotional world long before you came into it. They're hiding the intensity of their feelings because they don't trust those feelings won't consume them. But their love is real, their longing is real, their emotions are real, and their fear, as overwhelming as it may be, is a reflection of how much you matter. Everything they hide is proof of how deeply they feel. Everything they struggle with is proof of how real the connection is. Everything they fear is rooted in how much they care. And even though they fight their emotions, even though they wrestle with their own walls, even though they fall silent more often than they speak, their love remains quiet, complicated, intense, hidden behind layers of fear and longing, but real in every heartbeat. The avoidant who is deeply in love with you is not hiding indifference. They are hiding how vulnerable they feel. They are hiding the magnitude of their attachment. They are hiding the truth that loving you has changed them, challenged them, awakened them. The complicated secret they hide is simple. They love you more than they can handle, and they're trying, slowly, quietly, imperfectly, but genuinely trying to learn how to love you without fear.